Hello, my lovelies. I hope you're all well and I hope you had a lovely Easter. I know it's been a little while since my last video, but my daughter was off school and we all saw what happens when she's home. She comes and sits on my lap. But anyway, I hope you've been really well. And yeah, interesting story has hit the newsstands recently. Looks like Netflix are in deep doo-doo. They have been accused of blackwashing. This is the new Jada Pinkett Smith docu series on Queen Cleopatra. So what has happened is they have cast a black British actress as Queen Cleopatra, even though Cleopatra was of Macedonian Greek heritage. So this has sparked fury, and I think, it's a long time coming because we've all seen that, this whole blackwashing thing, like re-racing characters and people from history, actual people. It's been going on for a long time now, and it never goes the other way. So the left will always use the argument of, oh, they were just choosing the best person for the role. But as we've seen with Disney's live action Lilo and Stitch, they have cast this lovely young Hawaiian actress to play Lilo's sister, and there's been outrage because apparently she's too light-skinned. So as you can see, it only ever goes one way. They've been called out for blatant colorism and whitewashing, which is actually hilarious because we can see what has been happening in the media and in Hollywood and Netflix and everything. You can just see, we've had a black Anne Boleyn, a black Sir Lancelot, we've had black Achilles, etc., etc., etc. The list goes on and on. I will pop some pictures up, but yeah, you are all aware of what has been going on, right? So this new docu-series, which, I mean, it's a joke to call it a docu-series because it's obviously just a propaganda piece, not based on actual history, because the people in it are ascertaining that Cleopatra, because she was in Africa, must have been black. Unfortunately, a lot of Americans hear the word Africa and they just think sub-Saharan Africa, black Africa. There's no other ethnicities in Africa at all apart from black people, apparently. We know that Queen Cleopatra was of Macedonian Greek descent from the Ptolemaic Empire. So it stars the 37-year-old English actress Adele James. Producer Jada Pinkett Smith said she wanted to tell the story because we don't often get to see or hear stories about black queens. That's because you're not telling stories about black queens. What you're doing is you're appropriating other people's culture and trying to make it black culture, black history, which is a bit ridiculous, and it's insulting to black people. There are obviously stories about black rulers in Africa and the Caribbean and such, but apparently you don't want to tell that. You would just rather re-race historic figures that weren't black. Egyptians have reacted with horror to the denial of records which show Cleopatra was Macedonian Greek. An Egyptian lawyer has now filed a case with the country's public prosecutor demanding that Netflix be shut down. And I tell you, it was about time that the backlash began with all this nonsense. Cairo's former Antiquities Minister, Zahi Hawass, condemned the documentary as completely fake. Cleopatra was Greek, meaning that she was light-skinned, not black. Now, some people have been using the argument that we don't know what her skin colour was. Yes, she came from the Macedonian Greeks, but hey, we don't know for sure who her mother was, so there's a chance that her dad married a black African woman. Highly, highly unlikely. They were renowned for incestuous marriages because they wanted to keep the bloodline pure. So the idea that her father would have married a black African woman is pretty laughable. So you can see portrayals of Cleopatra, very old portrayals of Cleopatra, showed her as a red-haired woman with light skin. But yes, Hawass said the only rulers of Egypt known to have been black were the Kushite kings of the 25th dynasty. Netflix is trying to provoke confusion by spreading false and deceptive facts that the origin of the Egyptian civilization is black. Absolutely. And I saw that they have tested the DNA of multiple pharaohs and mummies in general, and the ancient Egyptians have more in common with the Mediterranean people of today than they do with sub-Saharan Africans. So they definitely would have been much lighter skinned even than modern day Egyptians, because modern day Egyptians are not akin to what ancient Egyptians looked like. Obviously it's difficult when you're looking at ancient DNA because it depreciates and the samples are less accurate than modern day DNA. On Sunday, lawyer Mahmoud Al-Semeri filed a complaint with the public prosecutor demanding that he take the necessary legal measures to block access to Netflix. He alleged the show featured content that violated Egypt's media laws and accused Egypt of trying to promote the Afrocentric thinking, which includes slogans and writings aimed at distorting and erasing the Egyptian identity. And yeah, he's 100% right. And here they've provided us with a list of blackwashing in other films and shows. So here we have Anne Boleyn. Yes, that was a renowned one that they did on British TV, Channel 5, I believe. Joan of Arc was depicted by a black New Yorker. Oh, gosh. Oh, and that was also a gender non-conforming Joan of Arc, by the way. Troy, Fall of a City. That Achilles, played by a black actor. The Hollow Crown, a Nigerian British actress, played Queen Margaret of Anjou, which was a French woman married to King Henry VI from 1445 to 1461. And I can pretty much guarantee there were no black people in England or France in 1445 to 1461. Once Upon a Time depicted a black actor as Sir Lancelot. If you don't know who Sir Lancelot is, he was a knight of King Arthur's Round Table. It's a legend. It's not historically accurate, but we're talking about medieval Britain. Again, there would have been no black people in medieval Britain. And Robin Hood, they had a black English actor as Friar Tuck. Again, this is set hundreds of years ago in the 15th century. There would not have been black people there. But never let the truth get in the way of a good story. The fury at Netflix programming comes after it appeared to have ditched the woke messaging last year. Netflix took a hit in the first half of 2022, losing about 1.170 million subscribers as rivals such as Paramount and Disney raked them in. The huge decline was seen by some as a direct consequence of the company's late response to demands from its viewers to tone down their woke agenda. But after deciding to back figures like comedian Dave Chappelle, it bounced back. Netflix added 1.75 million new subscribers for the quarter of 2023, nearly, 500,000 more than consensus estimates. And a stark contrast to the loss in the same period the previous year. The 4-part Cleopatra series will explore the legacy, intellect and life of Cleopatra, the 7th, the Greek queen of Egypt. So the trailer notes that she belonged to the Ptolemaic dynasty, but then goes on to dispute her heritage. And this is what I was talking about. This is appropriation. This is black Americans wanting to insert themselves into major historic times and major historic peoples. And, the Greeks and the Egyptians are up in arms about this, and for good reason. There is no... it's possible she was Egyptian, says one expert, while another adds, I remember my grandmother saying to me, I don't care what they tell you in school, Cleopatra Was Black. And Netflix has turned off the comments on the trailer amid controversy. Now, there was a Change.org petition to cancel the show that has since been taken down by Change.org. And then we see here some tweets. For the 9th time, the Egyptian Queen Cleopatra was not an Egyptian. She was Greek. Cleopatra VII was white. She wasn't white. She was Greek. Of Macedonian descent. Likewise, all the Ptolemy rulers who lived in Egypt. And this is what I'm talking about. The fact that they would have incestuous marriages in order to keep their bloodline pure flies against the argument that she was black, that her dad had married an Egyptian or a sub-Saharan African even, because like the Egyptians weren't black. So yeah, the argument just falls down. Netflix is yet again blackwashing a historically white character. This time it's Queen Cleopatra that is transformed into a black woman, despite that we know she was white of Macedonian Greek descent. So was all the, Cleopatra was not black. She was the Greek queen of Egypt, and is a beautiful connection between Greek and Egyptian civilizations. I understand the need to see yourself or people that look like you depicted in things, right? I get it. But to try to steal the heritage of other ethnicities and cultures to make yourself feel better, I don't understand it. Because we all know that Cleopatra wasn't black, and I guarantee Jada Pinkett Smith knows that Cleopatra wasn't black. But the fact that they see that Egypt is in Africa, they make this leap and this assumption that she must have been black then, because obviously all people in Africa are black. You know, it beggars belief. It really does. The over-representation of black people across media and film and TV is very evident in the Western world. It's nice to see that Egypt are fighting against the distortion of their history. I'm not sure that this court case will go anywhere. But yes, it's nice that they're fighting back. I mean, if you look at advertisements here in the UK, black people account for about 3% of our population, but they are in 95% of our advertising. And it distorts people's view of their own country. They did a survey, and most people thought that the black population of Great Britain was higher than 20%, even though it's only 3%. And this is down to the overrepresentation in media. Yeah. So I get the whole you wanting representation, but when it comes to trying to steal others' culture and identity, that's where I draw the line. And when you're talking about historical figures, there should be no re-racing, in my opinion, because we all know why they do it, and it is not just because that was the best person for the job. We know that because when it goes the other way, like in the Lilo and Stitch live action, where a lighter skinned person has been cast as the character, even though this girl is actually Hawaiian, she's actually Hawaiian. So there is no reason why she shouldn't play that role. Then we see the left are kicking off and calling it whitewashing. But anyway, I'd love to know your thoughts on the subject. Are you planning on watching the Docu series? I know I'm not. Cleopatra is a fascinating person, but I have seen documentaries about her, and this one seems to be rather blatant propaganda. So I'll be giving it a miss. But I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll see you very soon.